They can just print money out of nothing. And this is what we call easy money. You don't have to work for it. What this leads to is disaster. Israel comes in conflict with Iran. So America needs a scapegoat. That scapegoat is Israel. If you want to nuke an economy in a nation, if you really want to destroy an economy in a nation, give them easy money. If I want to destroy you as a person, I'm going to give you $1 million. Because you're going to take that $1 million and do stupid things with it. What does easy money mean? Easy money just means you think it's free. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to earn it, okay? And the idea of easy money is central banks have the power to print money. So if you come to me, I'm a bank, I can actually just give you $1 million. You take it. That's easy money, right? That's the idea, okay? So you don't understand this. It's a hard concept to understand, but banks have that power. They can just print money out of nothing, and this is what we call easy money. And what this leads to is disaster, okay? So let's go over the list of how easy money destroys nations. First is that it turns manufacturers into financial speculators. The reason why is maybe you're a car company. Before you're making good money, making cars and selling to the Americans. But if the economy is blowing up, the stock market is increasing, the real estate market is increasing, you're actually better off taking all your savings, your investments, and put it into the stock market, right? Because you have better returns. And as a corporation, you have to guarantee better returns for your investors. It makes people lazy, selfish, and greedy. That's easy to understand, right? If someone just gave you $1 million, you would not want to work or study ever again in your life. You create too much debt too quickly, you create financial bubbles, corruption between politicians and the financial elite, you create massive inequality because it's usually the wealthy who will most benefit from this wealth generation. You will increase unemployment and bankruptcies. And the last thing, this is really important, is because all this surge in prices, you price out young people and you destroy the nation's future. You look at the birth rate in Japan, it's about 1. And the reason why is Japanese young people do not see a future for themselves. Houses are too expensive, jobs don't pay that well. But it's not just Japan, it's also 1997 Asian financial crisis. Remember, this is when South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, their currencies were under attack. And because their currencies were under attack, they became devalued. The problem with this is, before this, Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea had access to easy money provided by central banks. So they could afford to buy things overseas, invest things overseas. Once the currency was devalued, they now went bankrupt. And as a result, monetary fund was able to step in and prioritize the central banks. 1989 is important because that's when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union and communism came to an end. Now it's a Pax Americana. And in the Pax Americana, the system is America would ship its manufacturing overseas. Remember, manufacturing was a source of middle-class wealth generation. Now it's shipping all its manufacturing overseas to focus on financialization. All right, so the idea is that Wall Street would take all its money, all its wealth being generated overseas, and then take it back to America and use it to invest in America, to engage in financial gains. So in other words, before America was manufacturing things like cars and washing machines. Now America is just gambling. The entire economy is based on gambling anymore. And this will lead to something called the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, where the global economy collapses basically. 2001, 9/11, the World Trade Center, terrorist attacks. It led to something called the War on Terror, where America, for no particular reason, went to Iraq, Syria, Libya, and destroyed these countries. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you would say, well, they destroyed these countries because these countries didn't have central banks. So that's what some people say. I would not say that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. 2008 is the great financial crisis. It happened because America had become a gambling economy. It had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is there's too much money flowing into America and there's not enough good investments. So what Wall Street did was it started to invest in really bad investments. It was encouraging people with no money to go and buy like 5 houses. Eventually, they would have to default. When they default, it would create a cascading effect where the entire global economy would collapse. And that's what the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. To solve this problem, what America did was print money. Look at this, guys. Up until the year 1980, America had $1 trillion in debt. America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, it has now $37 trillion in debt. This is all money printing. Starting about 2008, boom, you see the steep curve going all the way up. The economy in America right now is really screwed up. The reason why is the stock market is worth twice as much as the real economy. That makes no sense at all. The total value of the US economy is half of that of the stock market. So This shows you that right now, America is living in a fantasy. It's a make-believe economy. The other problem is this massive wealth inequality. You can see the wealthy people are pretty wealthy, but by 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up. So you have this massive wealth inequality being created in the United States. This also shows you how wealthy the top 0.001% are relative to everyone else, okay? So the main beneficiaries of all these reforms of this financialization has been the ultra wealthy in America. At the same time, if you're an average American, your debt has gone way up. So you can make the argument that the system is designed to exploit the middle class by forcing it into debt so as to enrich the wealthy's investments. So 2008, the global economy collapses. What happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is conspiracy theory. The central banks basically encouraged the Chinese central bank to start printing money. And this is important because when you start printing money and you invest in real estate, you need resources. You need to buy resources from Australia, from Brazil. And this is what saves the global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys. Like, I know when you go outside and you see all these big buildings and fancy railways, it's all very impressive. But remember, this is really important. Behind the veneer of this prosperity are three things. Massive debt. This is money is being printed. Someone has to pay this off. That's number one. Number two is this has created massive inequality. The third problem that's really important is it's created a lot of political corruption. So a really important lesson to understand the Chinese relationship with America is this. There's this very famous quote by Charles Baudelaire who said, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist." I'm going to paraphrase him, okay? And this is what I think is the relationship between America and China. The greatest trick America played was convincing China it could be rich. This is no different from 1985, the Plaza Accords, when America encouraged the Japanese to increase the value of their yen, which led to economic collapse. Well, when the Americans encouraged the Chinese to print money in about 2008 and about 2015, it basically created conditions for China's economic collapse. This is what led to the rise of this man, our dear fearless leader. I believe his intentions are good. I think he wants to save China from this global financial capitalist system. He needs to maintain China's independence and sovereignty. And he's fighting very hard to save the Chinese nation. So you can make the argument that what's happening today in China is no different from the Opium Wars. Remember, Britain created an opium epidemic in China in order to enslave the Chinese economy to the global financial system. That was the Opium Wars. Well, the same is happening today where the Americans have basically created a Chinese dependency on US dollars. What is the Chinese dream? The Chinese dream is work hard, get into a good school, get rich, move your money and your children to the United States. That's the Chinese dream. If that's a dream, then eventually the civilization won't last very long. So now you have the COVID crisis where China's locked down for 3 years. Now, you can make the argument that some of this was intentional in order to implode the Chinese economy. Why? Because the Chinese economy had become a system of transferring wealth from China to the United States. So by imploding the economy, you're stopping this drainage. This also led to the rise of this man, Vladimir Putin, who is very much like Joseph Stalin. He understands the grand picture. He understands strategy, grand strategy. He understands that now it's time to strike. Why? Because America has created this crazy, fantastical system where there's a hierarchy of prices. In the American system, the Pax Americana, many resources are the least valuable. The basis are the resources, which is what Russia has a lot of. Up next in this pyramid is manufacturing, which is what China does. Then up next is knowledge economy, so professionals, and that's what Europe and America does really well. Now, the very top of this pyramid are the financiers, finance, and that's what Wall Street dominates. What Putin said is this: you know what? If I can control the world's resources, the oil, the food, then I can invert this pyramid so that resources are at the top. And that's why Russia invaded Ukraine. Because if Russia were able to dominate Ukraine, Russia and Ukraine together would control 1/3 of the world's carbohydrates. Without Russian food, Africa and the Middle East would both starve to death. That is the rationale for Putin's invasion of Ukraine. He's a genius. He understands this fundamental weakness in the American system. If you're able to control the resources, you are able to strangle this financial system. So by invading Ukraine, Putin shows that America is a paper tiger. Faith in the USD rests on the aura of the American military's inevitability and invincibility. This now forces the Americans to invade Iran. Why does Saudi Arabia buy US dollars, even though they know it's not worth anything? what does Japan buy US dollars? What is Germany? The answer is they're afraid that if they don't buy US dollars, America will come invade them. They have no choice in the matter. But now that Putin has showed that, actually, you know what? The American military is not as strong as you think it is. The American military now has no choice but to prove it is as strong as people believe. It needs to restore faith in the military in order to restore faith in the US dollar. That's why the American military has no choice in the matter but to invade Iran. Why? Because if they're able to invade Iran, they're able to control the entire flow of Middle East oil. Also, they're able to control the active trade throughout the world, okay? Once it invades Iran, it creates a huge problem for China and Japan and South Korea. Why? Because guess what? These three nations get most of this oil from the Middle East, right? Japan imports roughly 89% of its oil from the Middle East. Japan is the largest buyer of US dollars. So if Japan ever says, you know what, screw this, we're not buying US dollars, the American economy goes bankrupt. So when you invade Iran, you control the oil supply, you control the entire Japanese economy. You can charge whatever price you want for oil. This explains the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because America just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs a pretext. The perfect pretext is Israel comes into conflict with Iran, Iran attacks Israel, the United States must now defend Israel because Israel is its ally. So America needs a scapegoat. That scapegoat is Israel. That explains why there's so much conflict right now in the Middle East. Look at this map, okay? This is Iran. It's surrounded by American bases. You have 14,000 troops in Afghanistan. You've got like thousands more over here. Iran is surrounded. It seems to me that America's been preparing to invade Iran for the past 20 years. It's just looking for the perfect opportunity. Problem though is Iran is not an adversary that America can defeat. The reason why is the geography of Iran. Look at this. In 2003, America went to Iraq and destroyed Iraq. Why? Iraq's a desert. It's flat plains. America has bombs. It has fighter planes. Pretty easy to destroy a desert. But Iran is all mountains. These fighter planes do no good against mountains. You can't bomb a mountain into submission. So if America were to invade Iran, there's very little chance that America would win this war. In fact, it may be the end of the American empire.